Hello and happy Tuesday, June 30th. Welcome to another exciting edition of Rate Desk. I'm your host, Michael Thomas, here to talk about multifamily interest rates and other news. First, going to the markets today, I might note June 30th is not only the end of the month, but it's the end of the quarter. In fact, it's the end of the second quarter. And guess what? The markets broke some records today. That's right, folks. They broke quarterly records. I like to compare them to pop charts and where we're at today. So the NASDAQ and the S&P 500 have not had a quarter this good since post-grunge rock band Crude was in the top 10 on the radio. And going back even further in time, the Dow Jones Industrial Average has not had a quarter this good since Bon Jovi, remember him, was singing Living on a Prayer on the radio. Some of you are going to get that, some might not. If you don't, you can always Google it. Going over to the U.S. 10-year Treasury yields. Those came up 3 basis points today, trading at 0.66. Okay, 66 basis points, a little bit of an uptick there on the U.S. 10-year. We are seeing the crude oil stick in the $39 barrel range, actually very high end of the $39 barrel range again. That was good to see. Jumping over to the multifamily interest rates, FHA is up about 3 basis points on the 223F. So that is now trading at 2.47 in the mid-range, fixed for 35 years. Jumping over the 221D for construction 40-year loan, that's quoting at 307 today. Now, one thing I just want to mention is I've noticed a compression between those two. Typically, there's a range between those two that can be 65 basis points. It was higher over prior periods, but in the recent periods, it's been around that. Well, it's compressed. Now there's a 55 basis point difference, so that's a 10 bip compression. Something to note, and certainly good if you're a construction perm borrower, that those rates are coming in a little bit in comparison. Jumping over to the agencies, Fannie Mae DUS, no change from yesterday. Still quoting low end of the range at 287, it's 2.87. Freddie Mac also quoting at the 310, again on the lower end of the range. Now, what I want to speak to you about in other news is a legislation package that has been proposed that impacts the affordable housing industry. It's the Emergency Affordable Housing Act, and it's something that's been on the hearts and minds of folks in the affordable housing industry, myself included, for a while. One of the key things of this legislation that would help people develop more affordable housing is fixing the 4% LIHTC credit. That's the 4% low-income housing tax credit, if you will, okay? Fixing it at 4%, kind of misleading. Why would we need to fix something that's 4% at 4%? Well, if you didn't know it, it's actually not calculated as 4%. That equity credit is calculated off something called the applicable federal rate. And today, that rate is 3.08. That is 92 basis points wide of the actual 4% credit, which is why fixing it would be great. In fact, it would be $73 million more of equity available within the 4% credit for low-income housing tax credit developments. Another thing to note about the 4% credit is that it is so-called non-competitive, although anybody who works in the affordable housing industry knows that anything you do in affordable housing is competitive. However, the 9% is really the one that runs out quickest, the 9% LIHTC credit, because there's such a limited supply and it provides about 70% of your total development costs, whereas the 4% only provides roughly about 30%. Fixing it at 4%, obviously that's going to go up. That's a good thing. And also, more folks can develop because theoretically, more people can just apply and get and receive that 4% credit than they can the 9%. So that's something that would be good. It would provide more equity in the marketplace. HUD estimates around $8 billion a year in LIHTC is put out there in terms of these programs for equity. So it would increase that, and that's a good thing. So there's other components to the legislation. I'm not going to jump all the way into that because it'd be a very long episode if I did. But just know that there's a legislation package out there. Take a look for it. Support it if you can, and keep your eye out for further updates on my show, Rate Desk. Thank you for tuning in to another exciting edition, and I look forward to seeing you again. This is your host, Michael Thomas, signing off.